The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 2, Child Widows of India, published in Daily Eagle, February 27, 1895. Swami Vivekananda, the Hindu monk, lectured in the historical hall Monday night under the auspices of the Brooklyn Ethical Association on India's gift of the world to the world. There were about 250 people in the hall when the Swami stepped on the platform. Much interest was manifested on the account of the denial by Mr. James McKean, the president of Brooklyn Rambai Circle, which is interested in Christian work in India, of the statement attributed to the lecture that child widows of India were not protected or ill treated. In no part of his lectures was reference made to this denial, but after he had concluded, one of the audience asked the question, what explanation he had to make to the statement. Swami Vivekananda said that it was untrue that the child widows were abused or ill treated in any way. He added, it is a fact that some Hindus marry at a very young age, others marry when they have attained a fair age, and some do not marry at all. My grandfather was married when quite a child. My father when he was 14 years old, and I am 30 years old now, and I am not married yet. When a husband dies, all his possession go to his wife or to his widow. If a widow is poor, she is the same as poor widows in any other countries. Old men sometimes marries childrens, but if the husband was wealthy, it was all better for the widow. The sooner he dies, the sooner he dies. I have traveled all over India, but failed to see a case of the ill treatment mentioned. At one time, there were religious fanatics, widows who threw themselves into the fire, were consumed by the flames at the death of their husband. The Hindu did not believe in this, but did not prevent it, and it was not until the British obtained control of India that it was finally prohibited. These women were considered saints, and in many instances, monuments were erected to their memories. Next, some custom of Hindus, published in Brooklyn Standard Union, April 8, 1985. A special meeting of the Brooklyn Ethical Association with an address by Swami Vivekananda, the Hindu monk, whose the main feature was held at the Pouch Gallery on Clinton Avenue that last night. Some customs of Hindus, what they mean and how they are misinterpreted, was the subject treated. A large throng of people filled the spacious gallery. Dressed in his Orient costumes, his eyes bright and flush mantling his face, Swami Vivekananda started to tell to his people of his country and his customs. He desired only that just to show to him and to his. In the beginning of his discourse, he said he would give a general idea of India. He said it was not a country but a continent. That erroneous idea had been promulgated by travelers who had never seen the country. He said that there were 9 separate languages spoken and over 100 different dialects. We spoke severally of those who wrote about his country and said their brains were addled by superstitions and that they had an idea that everyone outside of the pale of their own religion was horrible blackguard. One of the customs that had often been misinterpreted was the brushing of teeth by Hindus. They think they never put hair or skin in their mouths, but use plants. Hence a man wrote, said the speaker, that the Hindus get up early in the morning and swallow a plant. He said the custom of widows throwing themselves under the car of Juggernaut did not exist, never had, and that no one knew how such a story started. Swami Vivekananda talk on caste was most comprehensive and interesting. He said it was not a granted graded system of classes, but that each caste thought itself to be superior at all the others. He said it was the trade guild and not a religious institution. He said that it had been in existence from time immemorial, and they explained and explained how at first only certain rights were hereditary. Intermarriages and eating and drinking were restricted to each caste. The speaker told to the fact that the mere presence of Christian or Mohammedan would have on the Hindu household. He said that it was veritable pollution for the white men to step into Hindus' presence and that after receiving one outside of his religion, the Hindus always took a bath. The Hindu monk absurd the order of Parians roundly, saying they did all the manual work at 8 carrions and were the scavengers. He also said that the people who wrote books on India came only into contact with the people and not with the genuine Hindus. He described the trial of one who broke the rules of the caste and said that only the punishment inflicted was the refusal of the particular caste to intermarry or drink or eat with him or his children. All other ideas were erroneous. In explaining the defect of the caste, the speaker said that in preventing the competition, it produced stagnation and completely blocked the progress of the people. He said that in taking away brutality, it stopped social improvement. In checking competition, it increased population. In its favor, he said, were the facts that it was the only idea of equality and fraternity, that money had nothing to do with the social standing in the caste. All were equal. He said that the fault of all the great reformers was that they thought caste was due only to religious representation instead of ascribing it to the right source, namely the curious social condition. He spoke very bitterly at of the attempts of the English and Mohammedan to civilize the country by the bayonet and Mohammedans to civilize the country by the bayonet and fire and sword. He said that to abolish caste, one must change the social conditions completely and destroy the entire economic system of the country. Better, he said, that the wave of the Bay of Bengal flow and drown all rather than this. English civilization was composed of the three B Bible, bayonet, and brandy. That is civilization. It has been carried to such an extent that the average income of the Hindu is 50% a month. Russia is outside, saying, let's civilize a little, and England goes on and on. The monk grew excited as he walked up and down, taking rapidly about the way of Hindus had been treated. He scored the foreign he scored the foreign educated Hindus and described the return to their native lands, full of champagne and new ideas. He said that child marriage was bad because the West said so, and that the mother in law could torture her daughter in law in impunity, as the son could not interfere. He said that the foreigner took every opportunity to abuse the Heathen because they had so many evils of their own that they wanted to cover them up. He said that each nation must work out its own salvation and that no one else could solve its problem. In speaking of India's benefactor, he asked whether America had ever heard of David Harry, who established the first college for women and who had devoted so much of his life to education. The speaker gave a number of Indian proverbs that were not at all complimentary to English. In closing, he made an earnest appeal for his land. He said, it matters not as long as India is true to herself and to her religion. But a blow has been struck at her heart by this awful godless West when she stands hypocrisy and atheism into her midst. Instead of standing bushelled, instead of sending bushels of abuses, carloads of vituperation, and shiploads of condemnation. Let an endless stream of love go forth. Let us all be men.